The function of law. Law is a set of rules created by a state or community to regulate the lives of its citizens. Its aim is to ensure peaceful civil coexistence between people by protecting rights and imposing duties. It is an essential tool for ensuring justice, protecting rights, and managing conflicts. What would the world be without rules? Let's imagine we all live together in a large community. There are many people with different ideas, needs, and interests. If everyone did what they wanted without rules, we would risk chaos. The so-called law of the jungle would reign. The law of the jungle is a metaphor used to describe a situation in which there are no formal rules or established order, a situation where the principles of survival of the fittest and anarchy prevail. The law of the jungle represents a context in which there is no justice, and physical force or power determines who prevails. Where the strongest or most powerful can overwhelm the weak, without any legal limits or protections. There are no written or formal rules. Conflicts are resolved with violence or bullying. Law is there precisely to avoid chaos. The fundamental difference with the law of the jungle is based precisely on the idea of social order and regulated justice, contrasted with a situation of chaos and absence of formal rules. Law is a set of legal rules established by a legitimate authority, such as the state for example, and aimed at regulating human behavior to ensure peaceful coexistence, justice, and the protection of individual and collective rights. The main functions of law are: regulate relationships between people, ensure justice, protect fundamental rights, promote peaceful coexistence, set the rules for those who govern. The function of law to regulate relationships between people is fundamental to ensuring peaceful and orderly coexistence within a society. Without shared rules, relationships between people could easily lead to conflict and injustice. More specifically, this function means that the law establishes what can and cannot be done in relationships with others. Every individual has a set of rights, but also duties towards others. The law clearly establishes, for example, we have the right to express ourselves freely, to buy and sell goods, to enter into contracts. But it also establishes, for example, that we cannot violate other people's property, cause physical or moral harm to other people, nor defraud or deceive them. Through legal rules, limits and obligations are defined for each person, so that individual actions do not infringe the rights of others. The function of law to regulate relationships between people is therefore essential to avoid conflicts, protect the rights of all and maintain order in society. Without law, every interaction between individuals could become a potential source of injustice and disorder. The law seeks to ensure that everyone is treated fairly. If someone suffers a wrong or an injustice, the law provides the means to obtain redress, such as the courts. This function is perhaps the most important and complex, since it concerns the fundamental principle of fairness and equality that must guide all legal norms and legal institutions, state bodies, local authorities, public schools. In essence, ensuring justice means making sure that all people are treated fairly and that there is a system in place to resolve conflicts and right wrongs. This function is not simply to punish those who make mistakes, but also to restore balance and protect the rights of all. Through justice, the law seeks to contribute to building a more equal society, where every individual is protected and treated impartially, and where mechanisms exist to resolve conflicts peacefully and justly. Every person has rights, such as the right to liberty, life, and property. The law protects these rights and ensures their respect. The function of protecting fundamental rights is one of the central pillars of every modern and democratic legal system. Fundamental rights are those rights that belong to every human being, simply because he or she is a person. They are based on the principles of human dignity, equality, and freedom. The law undertakes to guarantee and protect them against any violation, whether by individuals or by public or private authorities. In many countries, fundamental rights are protected at the constitutional level, that is, they are enshrined in constitutions or in fundamental documents, such as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Being enshrined in the Constitution, they have special protection. They cannot be easily limited or eliminated, and any ordinary law that violates them can be declared unconstitutional by a constitutional court or equivalent tribunal. Fundamental rights, however, are not absolute. In some circumstances, they may be subject to limitations, especially when they conflict with other public rights or interests. Law, therefore, also plays the role of balancing different rights and interests. For example, freedom of expression is a fundamental right, but it can be limited to prevent the spread of hate speech or defamation. The right to property is protected, but can be limited for reasons of public utility, as in the case of expropriations for the construction of infrastructure, roads, highways, etc. The task of law is to find the right balance between individual rights and the common good, always respecting human dignity. Furthermore, fundamental rights are not static, but evolve over time, in response to social, technological, and cultural changes. The law must therefore adapt to protect new rights that emerge in a changing society. These are examples of evolving rights. Right to digital privacy. With the increased use of the Internet and digital technologies, the need to protect personal data and online privacy has arisen. Right to the environment. More and more constitutions and legislations are recognizing the right to live in a healthy and sustainable environment. Peaceful coexistence refers to a situation in which members of a community live together respecting the rights and freedoms of others, avoiding violent conflicts and ensuring compliance with common rules. Law is an essential tool for promoting peaceful civil coexistence precisely because it establishes rules that regulate social behavior, resolve conflicts in a non-violent way, and protect the rights and dignity of every person. Law plays an essential role because it establishes rules of behavior. Law sets standards for how people should behave towards each other, defining what is permissible and what is not, as in the case of rules prohibiting physical violence, theft, defamation, etc. Prevents conflicts. By regulating mutual expectations, law reduces the risk that people will enter into conflict, since they know what their rights and duties are towards others. Resolves disputes. When conflicts arise, the law offers peaceful means to resolve them, such as courts, mediation, or arbitration, preventing people from taking justice into their own hands. One of the main ways in which the law promotes peaceful coexistence is through the regulation of social behavior. Laws clearly define which actions are considered harmful or dangerous to society, and therefore prohibited, while others are encouraged because they are beneficial to the community. The function of law to set the rules for those who govern is fundamental in a democratic and constitutional state, as it is about defining limits and criteria within which rulers can exercise their power. Even those who have power, such as the government or politicians, must respect the laws. In other words, law does not only concern citizens and the relationships between them, but is also a tool to regulate the exercise of power by those who govern, not only the governed, but also the rulers. Let's see some central aspects of this function. 1. Limitation of power. The law establishes precise boundaries within which rulers can act, avoiding abuses of power or forms of arbitrariness. These limits are often set in constitutions or fundamental laws that enshrine the inalienable rights of citizens and the fundamental principles of the state. For example, in Italy, the Constitution guarantees the separation of powers, legislative, executive, and judicial, precisely to prevent a single power from gaining the upper hand over the others. 2. Accountability and transparency. The law requires governments to act according to criteria of responsibility and transparency. Government actions must be motivated, justified, and made public, so that citizens can monitor and, if necessary, challenge the decisions taken. There are also legal mechanisms to enforce political accountability, for example, through elections or no-confidence motions, and legal liability for crimes or violations of rules. 3. Principle of legality. Those who govern are subject to the principle of legality, which means that they can exercise power only if provided for and authorized by law. Every act of government must have a legal basis, and cannot be arbitrary or based on mere personal or group interests. The rule of law ensures that government actions comply with the law and can be challenged if they do not. 4. Balance of power. The law establishes mechanisms to ensure that no power prevails over others, through the separation of powers and their mutual balance. For example, Parliament makes the laws, but the government is responsible for their execution, while the judiciary ensures that the laws are applied correctly and constitutionally. 5. Judicial control. Rulers are subject to judicial and legal controls, which ensure that their actions comply with the Constitution and ordinary laws. In many systems, there are constitutional courts or similar tribunals that evaluate the legitimacy of government legislative or administrative acts. 6. Citizens' rights. A central part of the rules that govern those who govern is given by the protection of the fundamental rights of citizens. Laws and decisions of those in power must respect rights such as personal freedom, freedom of expression, private property, equal treatment, etc. Where these rights are violated, there are legal remedies, including against the government itself. In conclusion, the law establishes the rules for those who govern to ensure that power is exercised responsibly, transparently, and in compliance with the laws and the rights of citizens. This system of legal control is essential to maintain the rule of law and democracy, avoiding authoritarian or illegal drifts.